Welcome to the chaos sector. Briefly, everything regarding Koberger being the DoorDash driver obviously would be kept secret. Just like the Mad Greek restaurant owner claimed Koberger was never there. There is information and evidence that will not reveal Koberger's activities. For instance, Koberger allegedly stopped off at a grocery store, in which the authorities claimed they reviewed surveillance of him in the store. But, have you seen this surveillance? No, you haven't. Why would this be? In any other case, a robber, rapist, killer, anyone who is a threat to society, in a public area where there is surveillance, this footage is released to the media. We see it all the time, right? Yet, why no surveillance of Koberger in that grocery store? Let's examine an article from Moscow Pullman Daily News, written by Carrie Sandane. Quote, Clarkston, the man accused of slaughtering 4 University of Idaho students was in Clarkston on the day of the murders, according to the affidavit released Thursday. Brian Koberger's cell phone data indicates he drove his white Hyundai Elantra to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley on November 13. Court documents say surveillance from the Clarkston-Albertsons shows Koberger exiting the vehicle at 12:49 p.m. Interior surveillance cameras show the suspect walking through the store, purchasing unknown items at the checkout, and leaving at approximately 1:04 p.m. When contacted by the Lewiston Tribune on Thursday, an employee at the Clarkston grocery store said management is not commenting on the case or releasing the footage to the media at this time. Unquote. It is the authorities who are not releasing it, and I have a theory to why. Perhaps examining Koberger in that grocery store, the public may observe someone who appears quite decent, even a good citizen. This could be concluded based on his demeanor, his body language, etc. Remember, that was later that morning, approximately 8 hours after the murders. Koberger, if he was the killer, in a grocery store would show signs of strange behavior, such as looking around, or being a bit jumpy. Despite being 8 hours later, a killer would always assume someone knows something, someone heard something, or someone told someone something, and this creates paranoia. Regardless of how calculated Koberger would be, his conscience would eat him alive in that grocery store. You would have the wave of body language experts, breaking down his every movement, in slow motion, zoomed in, displaying an individual guilty of murder hours prior. But, if he appears like an average customer, with no real indication he had just stabbed 4 people earlier that morning, the public may be convinced he is not the murderer. And this is why they chose not to release that surveillance. If he appeared jumpy, nervous, looking around frequently, that surveillance would be all over the media. But I'm going to assume he doesn't, and it's hard to depict him as a maniac, when he appears quite decent, in the store grocery shopping. I go back to the statement Mortensen claimed she heard a man say. "It's okay, I'm here to help you." The statement sounds genuine, now that I review the setting again. It doesn't sound demented, twisted, or sick. It sounds like that man was concerned about what was going on in that home, as he had witnessed, or heard, something. Now here's a question you may have. Why was Koberger seen driving in that area then? Well, to be honest, have we seen this surveillance footage? Negative, we've only seen the surveillance of him leaving that area. Oh, wait a minute, we haven't seen that footage neither. Wait a minute, let's revisit something. If you recall, the media, social media, all displayed a white vehicle speeding down the road, right? It was depicted as Koberger driving away from the home, after murdering individuals, right? But, let's take some very crucial steps backwards.
It may be a big break in the case, a grainy image of a speeding car that could be the white Hyundai Elantra police are looking for.
Now the surveillance footage has some odd shape in the left-hand corner, which resembles a ghost. We will edit that out, because it is obviously a visual distraction. I'm sure our audience can't focus on details of the vehicle in the surveillance, with those shapes.
A night manager at this gas station in Moscow, Idaho, discovered surveillance video that showed a white sedan driving by on the night the 4 University of Idaho students were murdered. The timestamp says 3:45 a.m., right in the time frame in which police say the killings took place. The video has been handed over to police.
See what I mean? When there is a suspect, and there is surveillance, the authorities obtain a copy of that surveillance for evidence. And they soon release that footage to the news media, for public awareness of a crime. But the grocery store surveillance has never been released. Show a speeding car in the mainstream news, but don't show the suspect physically in a grocery store? They release body cam footage of Koberger being stopped sometime before the murders. Remember, the authorities have a copy of that surveillance, they chose to not release it. It's like they are evading that key evidence, and presenting the more inconspicuous footage. It's inconspicuous, because you can't really prove a crime was committed. A white vehicle spotted near a gas station, speeding down the road, is not evidence of a crime. Body cam footage of the suspect being stopped is not evidence of a crime. But the surveillance of the suspect at the grocery store, hours after the murders, is potential evidence, because you know who this person is at this point, so you need to publicly release his identity as a suspect in a murder case. Not skate around it, by showing body cam footage, right?
It shows the car traveling on this road outside the gas station. It's just 1.2 miles from the house where the students were murdered.
Who's out at 3:45 a.m. speeding? And this is significant, Harris, very significant. In a town of less than 50,000 people, less than 30,000 people, the driver has not come forward. Why?
Well, just like all the other 15 white Hyundai Elantras that apparently had been counted in that city. None of those owners came forward. Old Hag Grace is always pushing a narrative, and she is basically establishing that this vehicle is the guilty party. And mentioning the population of that city? Are you suggesting it's such a small town, that everyone knows everyone? This means his alleged presence in that neighborhood, driving around, back and forth by the way, would bring about suspicion. Based on Hag's narrative, you have an out-of-towner who committed the murders.
Inside Edition spoke with News Nation's Brian Enton in Idaho.
The exact direction we don't know. We know that it was on Highway 8, right in front of the gas station, and turned onto a side road. It appeared the car was headed out of town, and reportedly the assistant manager at the gas station said it was going quite fast.
Now, let's stop right here. Of course, the authorities redacted that time, as it was later discovered Kernodle was still alive around 4 a.m. But, if this was Kohberger, where exactly is he coming from and headed? If you recall in the last episode, we displayed the alleged timestamps of his path to that home, right? The time frame of 3:29 to 4:20 a.m. is what we'll focus on. If he is near a gas station at 3:45 a.m., he had to leave that area, then come back, right? Okay, let's walk this down. First off, the glaring suspicion here, besides the time, is the so-called reporter claiming they don't know which direction he was traveling. How would you not know which direction the vehicle was driving? Don't you have the freaking surveillance from the gas station? How do you know the vehicle turned on a side road, and appeared to be heading out of town? This sounds like suggestive programming, my friends, creating a murder suspect. Are you trying to convince the public that the gas station manager can't tell directions? Wow, that's bonkers. More suspicious accounts. And, it's our old friend from News Nation, Stuttering Stan.
And reportedly the assistant manager at the gas station said it was going quite fast.
Anywho, let's examine where this gas station is located, via Google Map. We start at the state lines, of Washington and Idaho. This is very important, because it displays the alleged path of the suspect, into Idaho, and then eventually to the victim's home. Highway 270 of Washington, connects with Highway 8 of Idaho. Now, before we get started, let's examine the route from Pullman to Moscow, or literally to the address of the victims. Keep in mind, for Kohberger to know where they lived, he had to have the address, right? Did he take this path? Because it's a direct, and quicker path. The mention of Highway 95 indicates that he took the longer route, seen here. This will be important later. Follow the blue brick road. We highlight key points, such as the victim's home, in connection to the alleged path. Now, as we examine the gas station's location, based on the darkness of the asphalt, I assume the vehicle is traveling on White Avenue. The news reported, and the media sources claim Kohberger traveled on Highway 8, which turns into Troy Road. Let me explain why each path is a very odd path for Kohberger to take. If Kohberger is traveling west from White Avenue, where exactly is he coming from in that direction? That's further eastbound, from his point of entry across state lines. If Kohberger is traveling east on Highway 8, where is he going? Because he is passing up the intended target's home. The surveillance has the vehicle facing westbound, so it's more than likely White Avenue. Which means, Kohberger would be traveling from the opposite direction of his alleged target's location. But let's look at that road, and its path in connection to Kohberger's arrival in Moscow. Heading eastbound on White Avenue, we have an intersection, with a street called Blaine, right? This street was assumed to be where Kohberger's phone is back online, approximately at 4:48 a.m. If the vehicle is traveling westbound from White Avenue, then we assume it traveled northbound from Blaine. Now, where does Blaine connect, traveling from the westbound direction? Let's take a look. Well, exit Blaine Street, get on Highway 8, exit on Steiner, and this takes you to Taylor Avenue, which will lead you back west. The vehicle being spotted on White Avenue proves that it had to have traveled westbound from Blaine Street. The only question is, where did it come from on Blaine Street? We assume it exited Highway 8, making a big U-turn onto White Avenue. Then, based on the gas station surveillance, at 3:45 a.m., the vehicle then heads back towards the target, through Steiner, Taylor, then King Road. Examine the path to the home, through the blue brick road. The question though, is why was the vehicle all the way on White Avenue at 3:45 a.m.? Based on the time frame and path, Kohberger allegedly arrived near the home around 3:29 a.m., right? But how do we know this? Did surveillance spot his vehicle in the area? Why hasn't this been released, yet the surveillance from the gas station was? If we can physically see the vehicle traveling back and forth in that area, based on surveillance footage, we can determine a lot, such as Kohberger obviously in that area the night of the murders. If there is no surveillance physically showing him in that area, and only surveillance from a gas station, about a mile and a half away, and at 3:45 a.m., how do we even know that's his vehicle? Just because it's speeding? Remember, the media alluded to that very surveillance footage, being Kohberger speeding away from the home. Yes, that's how it spread throughout social media. And essentially this became evidence against him. There is no footage of him in that area, yet they claim he was physically there from 3:29 to 4:20 a.m.? How do they know this? Where is the surveillance confirming this time frame? Quote, the Hyundai Elantra makes 3 initial passes by 1122 King Road residents, leaving via Valenta Drive. It returns a 4th time, at 4:04 a.m., first driving eastbound on King Road. It leaves the area at 4:20 a.m., traveling at a high rate of speed. Unquote. The phrase, high rate of speed, was subliminally linked to the high rate of speed of a white vehicle seen in the gas station surveillance. These are claims that would have to be captured by surveillance. Obviously his cell phone is offline, so you're not tracking him this way. So it has to be based on surveillance footage. Yet, what camera in that area captured the vehicle? We have never seen such evidence. The news reported that other businesses may have captured that vehicle driving throughout, yet nothing has surfaced, other than the one source. Once again, if they claim Kohberger's vehicle is seen in that residential area, and the specific time it arrives and departs, and returns, then finally leaves, how do we know this, or how can we believe this, if there isn't surveillance footage showing that claim? The roads that the vehicle traveled away from the residential area have not provided any surveillance via businesses along the highway. And then we have to address the very residential area. Because to claim Kohberger is in the neighborhood of the victims, at a certain time, you would have to have surveillance footage from some camera that spotted him there, right? Detective 101, if there is surveillance of a suspect, this is not withheld. A copy is obtained, the authorities collect it, send it to their tech team, and soon after, it is released to the news, so they can report that news to the public. There is no circumstance where the authorities would conceal surveillance of a suspect from the public. Yet, the authorities do not have to release the surveillance right away. Keep that in mind. But, officers of the law have to uphold the oath that they take to protect and serve the citizens of their country. If they do not release surveillance of a suspect in a grocery store hours after murders, or surveillance spotting the suspect driving around in the neighborhood the night of those murders, then they are violating the oath that they swore to keep. They are not protecting nor serving the citizens. Oh, where are they getting this surveillance footage from? The same place the media did, right? And there you have it, just magnifying the deception. The media presented a path, with specific timestamps, of Kohberger before and after the murders. Obviously the authorities have this same source of information. And with that said, I ask you once more, have you seen a white vehicle driving in that residential area? Have you seen that vehicle driving back and forth in that residential area? Since you haven't seen it, we can't confirm that vehicle, or better yet, Kohberger specifically, was actually there. And if we can't confirm he was there, we have to question if he was even in Moscow the night of. We only deal with logic. Quite ironic that the claims of Kohberger being spotted in that area is when his cell phone is offline. Doesn't seem like a big deal, because there is still surveillance that spots him there, right? Well, yeah, but no. But wait, then again, I think they have to have surveillance, with those specific timestamps. He had to be there, they tracked him from Pullman to Moscow. It's obvious he was there, maybe he was there. I'm sure he was. This is what a mystery will do to your brain, until you sort everything out. Think about this for a moment. They claim Kohberger exits the area on Valenta Drive? Well, where exactly did he go? Because based on the residential area, he can't just stake out anywhere in that area. So he would have to keep driving further away from the home, only to drive all the way back, apparently when he, quote, is ready to complete his mission. Remember, Kohberger passes the home 3 times, before returning at 4:04 a.m. Wow, he must have stock in oil, because he is burning a lot of gas, just to stay in that area. He can't stake out anywhere near the home, due to becoming a suspicious vehicle, so he has to drive away from the area, then drive all the way back, then finally drive all the way back to Washington. Does he have one of those gas discount cards? Speaking of gas, he drives by the gas station, and at no point gets gas, after all that driving around. It's a Hyundai Elantra, I get it. Great gas saver, but the amount of driving he did, and distance of driving, he averaged about 20 to 30 miles in travel, if we factor in the travel to Idaho, and back to Washington. Come to think of it, is there any point he got gas? What the hell? At any point, from traveling to and from Idaho, then back to Pullman, there is no surveillance at any gas station in Pullman, that he stopped at to fill his car back up? What the hell kind of vehicle does he have? The vehicle generates power through atoms in the atmosphere or something? From Pullman to Moscow, it's about 9 miles, this would be 18 miles in total. The distance from King Road to Troy Road, where the gas station is located, is about 1.2 miles in distance. Multiply this by 2, it's close to 3 miles. Then the traveling throughout roads such as Valena Drive, Taylor Avenue, White Avenue, Blaine Street, all accumulates to miles in distance. This is a lot of zipping around. What about his travels later that day? No gas fill up. You spotted him in a grocery store, yet can't spot him at a gas station? If the hunt is on for a white vehicle, everyone with a white vehicle is being watched. The communities are on high alert for a serial killer. Yet no surveillance footage of Kohberger filling his vehicle at a gas station. Wow. No surveillance footage from the grocery store, no surveillance from the residential area which apparently spotted him, no surveillance from any gas station, Walmart, Marshall's, any place that Kohberger publicly visited, has not provided any surveillance footage. The only surveillance footage of Kohberger is from a body cam of a traffic stop, months prior to the murders. Yet all of these claims that he was spotted in surveillance? Come on, this man is being framed. The DoorDash theory was something presented, due to the coincidental timing. It's still possible, but I think this is flat out a case of someone framed for some conspiratorial reason. Since Kohberger was a criminology graduate, maybe it has something to do with the authorities, and the law. Mind you, if anyone claims this surveillance footage has been held for the trial, let's stop it with the damage control. The authorities have no reason to hold that back now. They've already claimed his DNA was found in the home, they've already raided his home and collected items, and essentially he is guilty by the media's, and society's view. It doesn't get more devastating than DNA found at the murder scene. The reason they so-called have not released this surveillance is because it doesn't exist in my opinion. Which means, the entire timeline of his path has been manufactured. If his vehicle was spotted by a gas station surveillance at 3:45 a.m., then this would mean he traveled some distance away from the home, then traveled a distance back to the home, all within the time frame of 3:29 to 4:04 a.m. Remember, they report the vehicle returns to the area at 4:04 a.m., then leaves around 4:20 a.m. All of that driving back and forth shows signs of nervousness, right? It indicates that Kohberger was not prepared for what he was about to do, and this would lead to mistakes. Yet, this nervousness doesn't produce actual evidence in the home. A missing glove? Stumbling over furniture exiting the home? Stumbling over a rock outside? He walked past Mortensen, as if he had done that several times before, right? Yet before, he's driving all over the place, which we assume based on having the shakes. Heck, even mishandling the knife when the victims put up a fight is likely. My point here is the nervous driving around indicates that Kohberger did not have full control of the situation. And surely when he arrives in the home, facing real human beings, he would lose his composure and make mistakes. Think about it. Some may say, well, he kept driving away, because he didn't want to be spotted in that area, to where it became suspicious. Kinda defeats the whole purpose of being there in the first place. Like old hag Nancy Grace stated, it's a small town, so individuals would know he is not from that area, especially overnight. Which brings up another problem, surely college students were up at this time still, right? Forget a surveillance camera, where were the eyewitnesses to Kohberger's presence near that home? Doesn't exist for some reason. The fact that he drove away from the home, a mile away mind you, then so-called, rushes back towards that area, also seems suspicious. Why would he be speeding back to the home? Did he have a specific time that he wanted to attack? It's quite ironic that that time is aligned with when Kernodle receives her DoorDash, right? He returns at 4:04 a.m., which I'm not sure how this is accurate without any surveillance provided to confirm it, and Kernodle receives her DoorDash at exactly 4 a.m. If he was on White Avenue at 3:45 a.m., and speeding back to the home, it appears he was trying to get back based on a time frame. It's almost as if he was, get this, notified when to come back. And he rushed back to the home. And this is why the accuracy of his return is suspicious. Why? I think they added a few minutes to his return, to keep it from aligning with Kernodle's 4 a.m. DoorDash delivery. He arrives just after DoorDash leaves, yeah, nice try. But, does he go right in after DoorDash leaves? Or does he wait a few minutes, to observe activity in the home first? All pointless, because based on his behavior, he was too scared to go through with anything that night. He was scared, and an individual who is scared of even the thought of murdering someone can't carry this out if faced with real human beings. Don't misunderstand, a serial killer had their first time in murdering someone, but, because they were already twisted, their morality and sense of life had long vanished. But Kohberger's behavior of driving back and forth indicates he was scared, which means he still has morality. He questioned his plan, he doubted doing it, so when it came time to do it, he would simply drive off. Think about it, Kohberger gathers himself and heads into the home and proceeds to stab 4 people to death? Or, was he the DoorDash driver, witnessed, or heard, some form of violence, told Kernodle, "It's okay, I'm here to help you," but was not capable of protecting anyone due to the circumstances? That statement Mortensen claims to have heard is very important. It characterizes Kohberger in 2 lights. Either he is a sick individual who shows no mercy to his victims, by way of quote, releasing them from the world's pain, by murdering them, or he was a decent DoorDash driver who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or, a growing theory, based on lack of surveillance footage, Kohberger was not even there and had no knowledge of that home. We can't confirm either one to be honest, but it's looking more like he was a victim himself. Of circumstances. This is the chaos sector.